All right, let's get this thing started, Rob. You heard Steve announce it. No suspension for Nikola Jokic. You think that's the right decision? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, Chris, let's. The mistake he made was going into the stands. Like, you know what I mean? Even to go get the ball. Like, just you're in hostile territory, right? You're on the road. Just don't even, so that you could avoid any kind of situation or something to happen. But he didn't do. I know he gave the elbow to the guy. Right. He didn't throw a punch. The guy, he was trying to get the ball, and the guy was holding on to it. This ain't baseball when if the ball goes into the stands, Chris, you get to take it home. The NBA ball is not going home with you, even if it went in the crowd.
Unless maybe it goes up 300 feet.
Well, but if they do that, the guy takes it and runs. No, but the guy, I've seen that happen where it pops up. The guy grabs it. Yeah, but they got to run to the X's, Chris, because the ushers are coming for that ball. That's a leather basketball. That ain't a rubber ball.
Right. Nah, I'm with you, and I'm glad the NBA did not suspend him. Rob, I got to be honest. When we look back at some of the famous suspensions, and you and I remember it, we were covering it.
Right.
Like Knicks, Heat, Patrick Ewing being suspended.
You remember that series when with the Knicks and the Heat? Yeah. And that cost the Knicks that series. I don't care what anybody says. If I was the Knicks, I would have said suspend them all for one game. They took like.
Well, was it the Knicks' choice? It was many guys.
It wasn't. Split it up. But they split it up, and they made the team weak both nights, is what I'm saying. I would have rather say take everybody out tonight and let us play Game 7. So they lost Game 6 and 7 because both squads were weak.
And you remember Ewing, I mean, the brouhaha was under one basket. Patrick Ewing was all the way on the other end of the court by like the foul line. Not anywhere near the – now, granted, the rule is you step off the bench, and I get it. But, Rob, I just think sometimes they've ruined series by following the letter of the law
with you.
Rather than the spirit.
And that's what would have happened here, Chris.
Oh, it would have been terrible. I picked Phoenix.
Right.
I'd love to see Phoenix win.
But you don't want it to be like that.
No, exactly. That would have been terrible. And, Rob, the owner – the fan you mentioned was the owner of the Sun.
Right. And he's grabbing the ball.
I could argue, and I don't think I don't know what, I don't want to get in his head, but I could at least argue that he was baiting Jokic. Right? Because he wouldn't give the ball up. Then when he got pushed, he flopped like he was a player. I mean, it was ridiculous. And credit to him, Matt Ishbia, for coming out
and saying he didn't even want to fight.
He didn't think there should be a suspension. I credit him for that. I think they both should have got fined, though. I think he should have got fined. I mean, what's $25,000 to either of them? But bottom line is, thankfully they got it right, and now we got a great. It's looking like, Rob, it could be a great series.
It looks like it because I'm shocked. I thought Phoenix would. I mean, I thought. Denver, Chris, would be up 3-1 by now and win. And obviously, when you got Booker shooting 89% from the field, it's going to be hard.
Rob,
I mean, we'll talk about that. It's been unbelievable.
Booker is on fire. Here's just how good he's been. I mean, in this series, he scored 83 points in the last 2 games.
Right. And shooting what?
79% shooting. I mean, unbelievable. He's also the first player in NBA history to average at least 35 points on at least 75% shooting in back-to-back playoff games. Last night, of course, 36 points, Rob, 14 of 18 shooting. So think about that. Like back in the day before the emergence of the three-point shot, that would essentially be like you made every shot.
Right.
If you get 36 points on 18 shots, it's like you made every shot. Now, 14 for 18 ain't much difference, right? You might as well have made every shot. So he's been phenomenal, Rob, 34 for 43 in those 2 games. He got a few other things to his name. He's now scored, Rob, 331 points this postseason. That's through 9 games. First player to score that many points in 9 playoff games since Michael Jordan in 1990. And Rob, he's done it on 70% true shooting percentage, which is the combination of 3-point shooting, regular field goal percentage, or 2-point shooting, and free throws. And so he's the only player ever to score 300 or more points and shoot that well in that span. He's the leading scorer in the playoffs, leads in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. He's on fire. Rob, I don't think he'll keep this up. But right now at 61.7% from the field, he would set an NBA playoff record for 30-point scores, and he would top Shaq, who did it at 61.2 in 1998. Rob, I'm going to say this. And look, obviously,
you know what I'm going to say. Go ahead and say it.
But think about it, because it's not that. Kevin Durant obviously is the historically better player. There's no doubt about that. But right now, and I don't mean just like in the playoffs, I just mean like at this point in their careers, Devin Booker being 26, Kevin Durant being 34, about to be 35 in September, Devin Booker's better. If you just watch the games, I think he gets to his spots better. He handles double teams better. They're both tremendous shooters. Durant's a great shooter, and I think we give him extra points because he's 7 feet tall. He is a great shooter, don't get me wrong, but because he's so tall and we're not used to seeing people that tall shoot that well, that gives him a little extra points, but Booker's just as good of a shooter. And I think Booker is stronger. And so the physical play that can bother Durant, and we've seen it now. We saw it last postseason. We've seen it this postseason, whether it's Aaron Gordon giving him some problems or whether it's, in the first round, the Clippers giving him some problems. And obviously last year it was Boston. Physical defense bothers him. It doesn't shut him down, but it bothers him and lessens his efficiency. And then even ball handling, it's not a surprise that Booker, a guard, is the better ball handler, but he's markedly better. He's the one handling the ball as the point for the most part, when Cam Payne is out, now that Chris Paul is gone. And I just think at this point he does more. Like, again, I'm not saying he's all-time better than Kevin Durant, but I think at this point in their careers, Durant's, 15 years in, Booker is better. Both still great, but Booker, I think, is better.
I'm going to pass on the Booker is better than Kevin Durant. I get it, Chris. He's younger. He's having an unbelievable shooting streak that we haven't seen in the NBA, and it's hard when you see a guy shoot at that clip, but that's just not realistic. Those aren't real numbers. Those aren't numbers. What I mean, but you know what I mean? They're going to come down right, because those are just – if you're shooting like that for basketball, are you kidding? Like, that's just – nobody shot like that. And we know it's a lot easier in the NBA to score, but he's shooting. This ain't just dunks or at the basket, right, Chris. He's shooting. And so I can't get on board. I remember 2 years ago when they were up 2-0 in the NBA Finals and everybody was saying he was the next Kobe. And then they lost 4 in a row.
You know what Stephen A. called him?
What was that?
Today, the light-skinned Mamba.
Oh, is that? Oh, see? There we go. It comes again.
But he's killing.
No, he's killing. But I'm just saying.
I hear you.
We heard this before. And then after they lost 4 games in a row, we didn't hear any more Kobe talk. I mean, am I right? Didn't that go away? Because if he's that guy, there's no way you're losing 4 straight. And let me just give you some. I'll give you some numbers, Chris. So they were up 2-0, and then he shot 3 for 14 in Game 3, a loss. Game 6, he went 8 for 22 with 6 turnovers in the series clinching loss. So he's had those games. Now, he's playing great, and I'm not knocking what he's doing. So I hear you. But also, here it is, Chris. In 3 of those finals games, he shot under 38% from the field, and 3 of those games were phenomenal, but there were 3 duds in there. So looking off just what he's done the last 2 nights, it's hard to poo-poo a guy
really
shooting
the whole playoff.
Right, but I'm saying the 79%. Like you can't look at that and say anything negative about a guy who's making 8 out of 10 shots in the NBA. That's incredible when you think about it.
Here's the only thing I'd say about, like, you brought up the finals numbers. I'm not saying he was better than Kevin Durant then. You know what I mean? That was 2 years ago. He was 24, obviously not as seasoned, hadn't had as much playoff experience. And I will say this. Last year we did see him fizzle in the playoffs.
Right.
All right. But I just think watching them both together, side by side, like, you see who's carrying this team. And I remember we got Eddie Johnson, Rob, the Suns, former Suns player, and also a broadcaster for them now. We'll ask him about this in a few minutes. But when the Durant trade happened, and I was in Phoenix, we were there for the Super Bowl.
Right.
When it happened, or right after it happened.
Right after.
We might have been, it was either right after or like literally like a day or two after, right?
Yeah, right after.
And they were saying on Phoenix radio, it's still Devin's team. And I'm like, y'all crazy. Like, what? But I get it. He's been here. You drafted him. You're homebred kid, as far as you drafting the player. But I was like, Kevin Durant, it's his team. Now, he's the best player. But, and again, I attribute it to just Durant being a little older and not quite, what he was. But I just feel like Booker's better at this point.
And let me give you one more thing, one more numbers, okay? KD averaging 39.5, Chris, on 49, 35, 94% shooting.
Is that in these playoffs?
Yeah. 49, 35, and 94. And let's be honest, he hasn't even really looked comfortable there with the Suns. He's only played 20 games with them. Like, it's not like he's a well-oiled machine. And here's the other thing that I'm going to disagree with you on. People saying, it's Devin's team and all that. But before the trade, they were dead. Nobody had any like, if Devin's that guy, Chris, nobody was like, well, if they get in the playoffs and they got Devin Booker, watch out for the Suns. The Suns season was dead with Devin Booker alone leading the way. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but I would say the same thing about Durant. Now, Durant had Kyrie in Brooklyn, but you put Durant in that situation, I think it's the same thing. I mean, that's the thing. We haven't seen Durant do what we're saying Booker hasn't done, like without Golden State.
Right.
And so at an older age. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to hear what Eddie Johnson says. But